So Asia Pacific. The trading hubs are very cautious. There are a couple of large trading hubs. Singapore, Hong Kong, to a lesser extent Shanghai, and Hong Kong's character is also undergoing change. We will examine that more closely when we do China. But yeah, Singapore for sure, Hong Kong to a lesser extent. Huge trading and banking hubs. And don't want that reputation to be tainted by any US action. We saw the example of the Singapore bank acting in the case of Transtel. So there's a tendency to be over compliant, to de-risk the business, so that even if US sanctions overreaches, you don't want to be in trouble. We can contrast this with, we can build that example further by looking at the reaction of many financial institutions in the region that were super quick to sever ties with the Myanmar Economic Holding and the Myanmar Economic Cooperation and other entities targeted by the US and UK governments as well as the EU in relation to the Rohingya problem in Myanmar, even though for these governments, these locations, these entities, sitting where they were, many of their activities were not subject to US, UK or EU jurisdiction. This has been seen, noticed and commented upon by many of the US and global law firms. So, the US considers both locations, Hong Kong and Singapore, as highly OFAC compliant, though, as I said before and I say again, wait for the session on China to know what's happening at Hong Kong. Neither of these locations can afford to be anything else. Singapore in particular has nothing else to depend on than its reputation as a trading and banking hub. Hong Kong, if merged in heart and soul with China, is part of China. It's a superpower. Singapore, nothing of the sort. So everyone who is part of this chain feels pressured, concerned and alive to the risks of sanction violations. Everyone in this global chain, Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, South Korea, Singapore, Hong Kong, so on and so forth, checks with one another, pressurizes one another and pushes each other to comply. When sanctions regimes conflict, for example, US-China, they could have competing laws. The US could sanction and China could have a blocking measure which says, if you comply with US sanctions, you're in violation of Chinese law. Or US-Russia, where Russia might say, if you comply with US sanctions, you're in violation of Russian law. It can throw up compliance challenges. Okay. So the resultant key themes in APAC are twofold. One is over-compliance with US sanctions. The other is de-risking your value chain by erring on the side of caution.